What is up, you guys? I am in the comfort of my own house, of my kitchen. I just made myself some breakfast and my cafecito. Ooh. I am perfecting all recipes at once. Like, this is delicious. I made myself a shaken espresso with lechera and cinnamon. Mwah, delicious, half and half instead of like regular oat milk, and caramel drizzle. Girl, when I tell you I am perfecting all of the coffee recipes, especially the ones that I like, you don't always need to go to your local coffee shop. I'm just saying that you don't always have to buy coffee outside. You can make it at home, and sometimes you can even perfect it and it'll taste so much better than out there. Because you know how sometimes like your coffee is not the right color? Yeah, exactly. Cheers. I also made myself some huevos rancheros that I'm gonna eat with you guys as a mukbang in the meantime that we have a conversation, because can we celebrate the fact it has officially been 7 years since I filed for bankruptcy when I was 23. What a journey that I have been on. Amen to God, because I have been provided for. Nothing that I've needed, I've lacked. Amen. Can the church say amen? Wow. I decided to share my story on TikTok, and the feedback that I'm getting is amazing, because I know so many of us struggle financially or have struggled at some point financially. This is good. Am I gonna be able to talk? I'm sorry if you feel like we're moving too much. I'm trying to find the best lighting while I eat and enjoy my food, while also telling you guys this story. So you guys here on YouTube know, because I have come out, I think since I was like 25 years old. I don't know how old I was exactly when I decided to share my story here on YouTube about going bankrupt. And even that statement on its own holds so much shame, like overall, right? At one point or another, some of us have struggled financially tremendously, and some of us have just been able to come afloat by having people around us who have been able to guide us through our financial crisis. Can we talk about the fact that we all went through a pandemic, and that was a financial crisis on its own? Girl, if you're new here and you don't know my story or why I filed for bankruptcy when I was 23, I didn't always make the smartest financial decisions. Not to say that nowadays I make the most smart financial decisions, but I am a lot better than I was before. And as I always say, it's all about progression, not perfection. These huevos are hitting. That's what she said. But when I decided to share my story here on YouTube, a lot of you guys had so many questions, and I think I answered for the most part to a lot of you guys, even when you DM'd me and wanted guidance as to what you should do, what lawyer I contacted. I no longer have the information of that person, because I was like, I no longer want to ever have to need you. So I literally deleted the information, as I do believe that everything is energy, and what we save even on our phones sticks around us. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want that energy anymore. I am trying to be financially literate, and I'm trying to make better decisions. I no longer want to have to be in this court again filing for bankruptcy. And again, not to say that in the future it's never going to happen, but for right now, where I'm at and where I've been, I think I've learned my lesson. A little background story about me. I started working when I was 16, almost about to turn 17. At the time, my life was different. My choices were a lot different. And what I felt was important in my life was definitely not school. To me, even though I loved school through grade school and high school and whatnot, I just wanted to finish school and start working so I can get some money in my pocket and I can start enjoying life and doing the things that I always wanted to do. Because after we moved to America when I was 10 years old, we basically went from upper middle class in Mexico to completely poor here in America. I know many of you guys can relate, but here we were coming to America to live the American dream, which was not very dreamy, to be honest with you, because the lifestyle that I had before versus the lifestyle that I now was having was completely different. I was a kid. I did not understand emotionally, mentally, physically, everything that was happening and everything that was going on. And I didn't know how to navigate through everything that was happening in my life. So when I turned 18, I don't even know which credit card was the first one that I applied to. It might have been Curaçao. Shout out, comment down below if you've had a Curaçao credit card. I think they gave me like $300 worth of credit. I don't even remember what I bought. I must have bought some Beats headphones or whatever. Obviously nothing that was a necessity, right? Like I didn't need it, but growing up the way that I did, I always wanted more than what I was given. Because again, in the past we had that. And I grew up having everything that I wanted. Needless to say, through all that, God still provided for us more than what we even needed. At some point, you're talking about survival here. Like, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food to eat? Like, are you making ends meet? I got to experience living of one bedroom of a family member who decided to open up their doors to us. It wasn't the best experience ever. However, that's what we had, and my mom did what she could with what she had. Again, when I was 18 years old, I already just wanted to venture out. I wanted to start traveling. I wanted to start doing different things. And I grew up kind of bougie. Like I didn't grow up always wanting the minimum. Like I grew up having expensive taste because that's what we were around when we were kids before we moved to America. And of course I had to adapt. Something that I've always had to do in my life is adapt to different people, to different environments. And just overall, learning to adapt was a journey on its own. Long story short, I'm 18 years old. I start getting credit cards. I think I got the Curaçao credit card. Eventually I got a Best Buy credit card. Eventually I got a Bank of America credit card. Eventually, like I had like 8 credit cards, y'all. And yes, they were all up to the top. Like however much they gave me, as financially smart as I tried to be, because honestly, like I did try to not go to the limit. I just couldn't, because my wants and desires were so much bigger than what I was able to afford. And that's problem number 1, living outside of your means. Eventually I got a hold of the Discover card. If you know anything about Discover, and here on YouTube, you guys know I've talked about it so much, even on the podcast that I've had with friends, that Discover will give you a bunch of money because, oh yeah, like you want to get in debt? Like here you go. Our interest is like 30%, but here you go, because we know you're not going to pay it in a matter of a month. So all of the interest is going to accrue and you're going to owe us so much more money. Mistake number 2, never let your credit cards go to the limit or past the date that your statement is due, because all of the APR that you owe for the month, like you're still gonna owe it, and it's gonna be about 27 to 30% off that money. So if you spend $3,000 in a matter of a month and you only pay off $1,500, you're not gonna have to pay APR on the other $1,500. No, baby. The company is going to charge you APR based on the full amount that you spent that month. So the $3,000, and that's how they make their money. Another thing I had no idea of. Again, I'm young, I'm naive. I think I know it all, because don't we all? We're young and we think we know it all. And we don't want anybody telling us what to do. I don't know exactly what transpired, how the events happened, but I finally at 21, I think I was almost turning 22, I was able to get a full-time decent job that was going to be able to help me pay off my bills. At this point, I had a car note. I had somewhat of rent because I didn't have much of a rent payment, but I did pay rent to my mom to, you know, help in the house. And I think my phone, and that's it. Like those were my main responsibilities. By this time though, I had already owed so much money to different credit cards and different banks, because it had been years since I've been using credit cards. I was paying the minimum payment every single month, accruing all this interest, so I was never able to get across to even the principal because all I was paying off was the interest. Eventually, a friend of a friend came around and I found out that her mom or someone that she knew had filed bankruptcy a couple of times. And I was like, well, how does that work? I started asking questions and I was like, I think I'm at a point where I'm gonna have to file for bankruptcy. Now, the thing about bankruptcy is that it stays in your record for 7 years. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to deal with the pros and cons. I'm trying to be an adult, and I'm trying to have more financial literacy and not be so afraid of money, because that was another thing. Like, as much as I wanted money, I was so afraid of having it because I knew that I didn't know how to handle all the money that was coming in. Now, here's the thing. Filing for bankruptcy, especially if you're gonna go through a lawyer, you have to pay the lawyer money. If I don't have money, how am I supposed to file for bankruptcy, or how am I supposed to pay a lawyer if I don't even know where not my next meal is gonna come from. I'm exaggerating here, but how am I gonna do it? Like, I really had no idea. No one in my family knew. No one that I was close to knew, because I was so ashamed of it. And I just didn't know how I was gonna be able to juggle through it. I personally don't like asking for favors of people that I know later on they're gonna try to charge me. And what I mean by that is, I've always been this way because I grew up in a place where, hey, like, I'm gonna play nice, I'm gonna give you what you're asking for right now, but later on, like, I'm gonna remind you that I did a favor for you. I don't play around like that, and I just knew that I couldn't just ask anybody for money. So I also didn't want to be owing anyone money when I knew that I wasn't going to be able to pay it off, because at this point in my life, obviously I had no idea what I was doing with my money, and I also didn't know how to finance myself. I was so devastated because I was already so ashamed of what was happening in my life, and at this point, like, I didn't want to tell my parents, you know, and I was like, okay, like, it is what it is, I'm gonna say it. And I knew financially, like, my mom wasn't going to be able to help me. So I remember I didn't even share it with her. She was the last person I shared it with. So I went to go talk to my dad, and my dad was someone who in my life personally was always someone that I can go to. He didn't always have the means, he didn't always have the money, but if I needed help, he was going to do what he needed to do in order to help me. And I had to voice that I needed this help. So I remember having a conversation with him. Like, as I'm talking to you guys right now, I remember being like in the apartment, like in my room, talking to him on the phone, because at this time I don't remember if he was living in Mexico or if he was already here in the United States. I was telling him, like, Dad, I have something to tell you, and I'm so ashamed of it, and I don't know what to do. It makes me want to cry right now because I wish that I can go back and celebrate this victory with him. Wow, I was not prepared for this. I remember telling him, like, I feel so ashamed of where I'm at in life. Like, I have a good job now, and I can potentially do good for myself, but I feel like I'm already too deep in the hole financially to where, like, unless I wipe this all out and I file for bankruptcy, like, I'm not gonna be able to do anything. And by this time, like, I've always been smart enough to do the research before even telling people something or asking for help in whichever way, because I'm gonna try to do whatever is in my hands to do, and then once I really can't, then I'll reach out for help. So I had already talked to the lawyer. I already knew what I was gonna do, and she had already told me that it was gonna cost me $2,000 or $3,000. I really don't remember the exact price. So I tell my dad, like, I need $3,000, and I don't know where to get it from because I don't have money, you know, like, I don't have money. And every time I get paid, like, all of my money, aside from the small responsibilities that I had at the time, which were big for me then, everything else is going to all of these credit cards. And I just want to live life. Like, I've obviously done it absolutely wrong. I've obviously had no idea where to go from here and what to do, and God cover that man, because if there was one thing my dad for me was gonna do, was come through. Like, however it was that he did it, whether he asked someone to lend him money or not, like, I don't know how he did it, but he said, give me 2 weeks, I'm gonna get you the money. I think he was already here in the United States, actually. Eventually, like, he sent me the money, and because I had already made a decision that that's what I was gonna do, I filed for bankruptcy, and that was a whole other shameful thing that I had to deal with. After that, I went on to tell my mom. My mom was always someone who was very responsible when it came to money, and I say responsible in quotations because She always was very much like very to the T, very organized, but also a lot of it came from her wanting to make sure and that she was in control, that she was always gonna have at least enough to eat, right? Because she had been through her ups and downs as an individual herself and with our family. So at this point, I'm 23 years old. I'm supposed to, in her mind, be smart and have things figured out. And here I am having a conversation with her where I'm telling her that I'm about to file for bankruptcy and that I am basically like the worst person ever, right? Like that's how I felt. Now, let me just add, my mom was not the compassionate, merciful soul that she is today. My mom was very strict and very rigid. And anytime that I felt like I disappointed her, like she would tell me like, what? Like she couldn't believe it. And if the last thing I ever wanted to do was disappoint my parents. But I mean, as a grown up, now I understand that no matter what, people are gonna disappoint you regardless. As a kid, I'm gonna disappoint my parents and they're gonna disappoint me eventually too. So it was what it was. I told her I felt like crap, like the lowest of the lowest barrel, right? Because again, my mom always held me to a higher standard for whatever her reasoning was, maybe because she always said that I was so much like her. And in her head, she couldn't believe how I had made such mistake. Especially because I think in her eyes, she tried to do and try to teach me about money as much as she knew. I don't think ever in a million years she thought Amy's gonna open like 10 credit cards and like just spend a bunch of money. But I did. So maybe don't have such high expectations of your kids, just saying. So here I am feeling ashamed, feeling like a disappointment, feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, and I really didn't know. Again, I didn't feel like I grew up with enough guidance when it came to money, and not to excuse it, I am accountable completely for all of my financial mistakes, all of my mistakes in life, matter of fact, but I still felt so ashamed and didn't know what I was gonna do. I always knew that here in America, like you can't do great things unless you have good credit. Well, by filing for bankruptcy, I learned how to live with cash money, like cash money. I learned that I had to do what I had to do with the money that I was making. I could no longer rely on, well, if this happens, I have this credit card to save me just in case of a rainy day. Like, no, like I had to go through my own trials and tribulations when it came to the financial world and really just rely on the income that I was getting. The shame didn't stop there. Having to file for bankruptcy, I had to show up to court and actually be in front of a judge in a courtroom full of people that were filing bankruptcy. So did that make me feel a little bit better? Yeah, because I wasn't the only one, but also it was my first time ever in court. And I had no idea like what I was doing, what I was saying. And obviously I was being coached by my attorney. And to her, it was like, oh yeah, this is just what you're gonna say. But to me, a 23-year-old that was like completely unaware of the court system, the judge system, all the systems, and my first time being in court, I just didn't want to say anything wrong. All I remember the judge saying when it was my turn, because before that, other people with the same case basically went, and you could hear, this is how much you're in debt, what are your assets, basically what do you owe that belongs to you, and how many times have you filed for bankruptcy, A, B, and C. There were some people in there that had filed for bankruptcy 3 and 4 times, and I was like, ay Dios mío, like please let me not be that person that comes back again. Like I remember praying and I was like, I really, like I'm trying to learn from this, you know, and I'm so thankful that in whichever way that you made it happen, like you gave my dad the ability to be able to help me, because this is my opportunity to redeem myself. This is my opportunity to start fresh and make something better financially for myself. That truly was what I wanted in my heart, and that was truly what I was gonna do. So when it was my turn, I sat in front of the judge, she repeated my name and she asked me, what assets do you have? And then she went through the list, and there was nothing absolutely under my name except for the car that I had purchased at the time, and I think I had even co-signed it with my mom, so it wasn't even fully mine, but it was also a car that I was paying. So she was like, okay, well, we're not gonna take away your car because you're currently, are you still paying it? Yeah, I'm still paying it. Okay, like you can stay with your car. I'm gonna go ahead and approve your bankruptcy. But I remember her saying, like, it was almost like a mom and daughter moment. She was like an older lady, and I remember her just telling me, like, don't let this happen again. Like, you know, like you're gonna be okay. it even gets me emotional right now, because again, like if I go back to every time someone has helped me in whichever way in my life, but specifically financially, like God has always sent angels and provided for me in the ways that I always needed him to. Like there has not been one time where I was left hungry, where I was left unsheltered, where I was left unclothed. Like he has always come through. And having that moment, like I was like, okay, like, yeah, like I'm not gonna let it happen again. Like even now I remember that promise that I made to the judge. I mean, which was another promise that I also had, you know, made to God and just made to myself. Like I'm better than this, and I don't want to end up in this place specifically because I'm completely accountable for this. Like I put myself here. I was not responsible. So I left the courtroom. Things were cleared. On my way home, I called my dad and I said, it's done. Thank you so much. I called my mom, and I think I got home and I ended up telling her like everything is clear, everything is good, like I'm good, like I'm gonna be good from here on now, right? I still felt so much shame because at the same time I was like, how am I gonna eventually like go rent an apartment? How am I gonna eventually go buy a new car? Like how am I gonna do it? I didn't know, and this led me to having to do research for myself. And at the time, TikTok didn't exist. It's not like you could just pull up something and be like, boom, like this is how you do things. Like YouTube was always a thing, but I just didn't think of it at that time. And I just started little by little, but by literally just making a budget for myself and living within my means. I will be honest with you, I didn't have like a good savings at the time, or even for years, just because to me, I still had the mentality of enjoy the things that you want right now because you don't know what's gonna happen later, but also like save for a rainy day, right? Eventually at 25 years old, I ended up moving out of my mom's house. Even though I had the bankruptcy in my record, I was still able to rent, and thankfully they didn't ask me for extra deposit or anything like that because I had income coming in, and it was consistent income, and it was income that thankfully has gotten me through life overall, right? And I am extremely and will always be extremely grateful for the job and the income that God has given me, and that has allowed me to provide for myself, and even now like pay for everything that I am able to pay for. And now at 30, past 7 years, past the initial turmoil of having to file for bankruptcy, like I'm still grateful for everything that I've been able to attain because of that job. And 7 years later, I'm extremely grateful to even be here telling you guys my story and my testimony, because honestly, like that's what it is. Like I went through so many tests financially, and now like I am so happy that I'm able to get credit. And before, I thought credit cards and just credit overall was so bad for you because it was just an easy way to be in debt. But when you know the importance of credit and when you learn how to work it like I have now, I'm like, wow, like my credit score has gone from a really low 400 to a high 700 in a matter of these 7 years, because I've also been able to work on my credit through having the car payment that I had and now having my car paid off, and also another credit card that I actually was able to pay off, and through the years allowed me to reopen an account. Even though my spending limit was about $1,000, like I have been able to work with that credit card to help my credit score get it up to what it is now. Now my car is paid off. Now financially speaking, I'm literally like, I don't need a new car. Do I want it? Yeah, but I don't need it right now. Like the car that I have is in perfect shape and is able to get me from point A to point B. Like I don't need the most extravagant car. And now I'm also able to travel. I'm also able to do so much more and really see what my priorities are, so that's where I lean into instead of just spending money because of whatever. Another thing that I was able to do in these 7 years that I had filed for bankruptcy, again, this was before this credit card that allowed me to have $1,000 of spending limit. I was able to buy my first luxury handbag. And if you've been here a long time, I actually share that experience with you guys. It was such a great deal for me to be able to go to the store and actually swipe my debit card. Like I didn't swipe a credit card and like buy a bunch of luxury items. No, like I precisely swiped my debit card, and it was money that I had earned with my hard work. So for that, like I feel very proud. proud. So now at 30 years old, I'm like, okay, Amy, like, you've learned. And here's the thing, like, a lot of you may see things and be like, well, the people around me aren't helping me. I also had people that didn't want to help me for whatever the reasoning was. But you gotta take the punches, and you gotta hold yourself accountable for what it is and look for other avenues to get help. Do I hold any resentment to these people because they didn't want to help me? I don't, because they understood and they knew that there was a lesson that I needed to learn. And even though in my eyes, it would have been easy for them to just help me, I was also able to give the opportunity to someone else like my dad to show up for me. And that was also amazing on its own, because it allowed me to heal another relationship and so many other ways that have so much work to do emotionally. Now at 30, I do believe that there are things that are meant to harm you, but instead of harming you, are able to help you and heal you in whichever ways that you specifically need it. It's been 7 years. Thank you, Diosito, because I'm out of here. I'm out of this rug, and I cannot be happier with the outcome and with where I'm at currently. There's still so much for me to learn when it comes to the financial world, and there's still so much that I'm currently learning. And something about me, and something that I continue to love to do, is develop myself and develop skills and develop knowledge, because I don't know everything. And like the young me that thought that knew everything, I definitely didn't, and I still don't know a lot. And if anyone can learn through my experiences, this is why I share them. Like, this was even the reason why since the beginning I started YouTube. And I always have been honest and raw and transparent with you guys. And financial struggle comes with a lot of shame, so much shame that some of us are not always ready to talk about. And that's okay. Like, if that's where you're at right now, it's okay. I'm sure after the pandemic, so many people struggled financially, especially after giving all this money by the government, and all of a sudden we don't have anything. Like, people are struggling, and it's okay if you're one of those people that are struggling. Like, there is a way out, there is hope, and all of our experiences are different, but you can get out of it regardless of how old you are. I'm telling you, when I went to that courtroom, there were people of all ages filing for bankruptcy. I'm not here to tell you that I condone 3 or 4 or 5 times of filing for bankruptcy, because I don't know these people's experiences. But for me personally, that one time allowed me to learn from my mistakes, and has allowed me to just completely turn that world around, and even be someone who can talk about this so that I can give hope to others. So I hope that if you're watching this and you are struggling financially, or you are in so much debt that you don't know what to do, that this is some guidance. I will tell you that most people who have money don't do it by themselves. And what I mean by that is, there are financial advisors, there are attorneys, there is so much information on Google, YouTube, now TikTok, everywhere on search engines of where you can find things out. There are financial advisors that I've come across that will even give you a 30-minute, an hour free appointment so that you can tell them whatever it is that you're going through financially, and they're able to tell you like, yeah, no, you should file for bankruptcy. Or there's this new term that I recently learned of solvency. Solvency does not go on your credit report. And for me personally, I think I still would have had to file for bankruptcy, but every experience is different. So you still may be able to file for solvency, and for it not to be on your credit and not affect your credit. There is help, there are ways. It's just a matter of getting someone to help you and doing the research. And as ashamed as you may feel regarding the decisions that you've made financially, like, acceptance is going to be your best friend, because having to accept that this is where you are now and it is what it is, like, there's absolutely nothing you can do to change it. That's going to give you so much peace, and it's going to allow you to get on and get to whatever step you need to get the help that you need. So wherever you're at, I hope that this inspires you. I hope that it gives you hope. And if you guys have any questions, please put them down below. I am starting a series on TikTok where I'm talking about my bankruptcy. So if you have any questions, you can always ask me them there, and I can answer them with the video, because that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm excited. I'm excited for everyone who is going to be able to find some hope through my experience. I love you guys as always. God is good, man. God really is good. Just even sitting down here as I'm talking to you guys and meditating on everything that has happened to me financially and all the people that have been sent, all the angels that have been sent to help me to this day. Like, there are people in my life that I know got sent because he knew that there was something that I needed. And hope could really be lost in the world that we live in, but if there's one thing, is that God has always come through for me. Even when I allow fear to be bigger than my faith, I try to sit and remember and meditate on every single time that God has come through for me, of every single person that has come into my life that has given me some sort of hope. So I love you guys. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing and for allowing me to be vulnerable in this humongous open space where anyone can be whoever they want to be. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys. Until the next one.